At one point, I was able to support 3 engine design teams for Formula One. Would you think that somebody is using CFD to optimize the patterns of strawberry sauce in an ice cream? No, you wouldn't, but that's the thing people do these days. I want to tell these stories of great engineering, enable engineers to do it themselves. The default color bar of every CFD simulation is just not a good choice. I have a first estimate of how long this will take me, and then I put on a factor of 5 to 10, and that maybe is the real thing. Sometimes you just need to do what the market wants. Send me an image and I don't need a CV.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Realize Live 2025 here in Amsterdam today with a very special guest, Simon Fischer, who is a long-time, I would say, online friend. And now we finally met for the first time here in Amsterdam in real life. Welcome.
Yeah. Oh, good to have you here.
Likewise. Today we'll talk a little bit about Simon's journey from being a physicist to joining the dark side of marketing, product marketing, I should say. Talk a little bit about your journey. Like, how did you start with physics/fluid mechanics?
Yeah, I mean, it all started like, obviously you finish school and then you don't know what to do with your life. And I was pretty clear I wanted to do something around technology. So there was the first decision whether it is engineering or it's physics for me. And I looked at both, and then at one point I just decided I'd go for physics because I thought then I don't make a real decision because it's so broad. You can still do anything. That was like postpone the big decision and just do physics. Not knowing what I was subscribing to at that point, but yeah, then I studied physics and I realized, okay, physics is cool because you get that broad insight and spectrum of things, but lasers and all things I couldn't see and touch are not for me in the long run. So I tried to figure out a way to move a bit to more tangible things. And the first step in that direction was I was having a diploma thesis where I could build a tabletop wind tunnel. So it was also a hands-on piece in there. And looked at, basically I looked at granular matter and how structures form in the sand, basically like you find it on the beach. So I was basically playing in the sand, if you want so. And I realized I enjoyed that fluid mechanics stuff. That was really like the pivoting moment for me to realize, okay, fluid dynamics could be a nice thing to focus more on rather than this very broad thing. I mean, and also like quantum mechanics and all these things I couldn't see and touch were just not for me. I realized that. And the other thing I realized is next step, I wanted to do a PhD. That was quite clear to me. And it should be something that is not like basic research, like fundamental research. I wanted to do something that is more directly affecting people's life or industries and stuff. So it was clear that this is like the moment where I was leaning more towards engineering because they're the obvious direct connection to stuff, to products, to things that people touch and use was there. So I looked for a PhD, and I had this like idea of what fluid mechanics is. I had no clue of what computational fluid dynamics is at that point. And then I looked for a nice PhD position, and I looked for a nice city in Europe, and I ended up in Vienna, and I don't regret it. So, and in the automotive industry at that point, I did simulation of exhaust gas after treatment for diesel engines. I was not involved in anything. So
Little disclaimer.
but I saw, you could argue I saw some of the struggles the automotive industry was having at the point with the exhaust gas after treatment, and we developed a method back then in the PhD thesis. I developed a method to really predict this after treatment system using CFD, so like a virtual twin, a digital twin of the exhaust system. And yeah, I spent almost 5.5 years like looking at droplets impinging on hot walls, which is like you could argue it's quite a chunk of a lifetime, but I don't regret it either. It's like it was really deep down the physics again, yet with an engineering relevance. And yeah, that was up to there. I was on the bright side, or on the light side. And then I continued. I was never a petrol head, but I continued in internal combustion engines, moved upstream from the exhaust gas after treatment system to the actual engine, and did then move to CD at Upco as my first job, being a support engineer for internal combustion engines. Like doing reacting flow simulation and like all the stuff I've been doing on the exhaust, but now you add the fact that you compress a volume to a 10th or a 15th of it, you ignite some liquid, and then you obviously you also after the injection you ignite it, so you put a lot of energy in a very small space. And even if you don't like engines, as a physicist, that was fascinating to just be able to simulate that stuff. So I did that for almost 5 years, and that was exciting times because I had the opportunity to support major OEMs across Europe, Formula One teams. So at one point I was able to support 3 engine design teams for Formula One.
Very cool.
And I've been traveling all the cool places for a petrol head, and I was always like, I couldn't really. It took me a while to get the excitement for cars, to be honest, but that helped, because if you see those engineers with their passion and they stay in night long, and you try to help them to get this stupid model run, and you get it, like you get the vibe in, I don't know, Maranello and in Brixworth. So it was really cool to see all that. But if you do technical support, that means you basically you solve other people's problems all the time, and once it's solved, it's off the table. And engineers out there are very nice, so you get this thank you and they appreciate your help, but you never have your own ongoing project. You come into work, you don't know what's happening this day because somebody might have an issue with the software. They come to you and it lands on your desk, and then you work on it, and then it's off once it works. So and that you do that for a while, and then you decide, is that something I can continue doing all my life or not? And I realized, no, that's not for me. I realized the internal combustion engine is reaching a level where you don't know where it's going with all the electrification, and I wanted to own my career, so I did not want to be told, now you do this and that, so I tried to look for something else. And the last thing I actually was looking at that point was marketing, or I didn't realize marketing was for me. But I realized I enjoyed doing fancy animations of the stuff that in pre-sales projects we've been doing to sell the software. And then I stumbled over an internal job advertisement for technical marketing, automotive, and that was just spot on. I called up a later friend of mine, Stephen Ferguson. And he said, yeah, cool. Let's see. And I gave him a bunch of ideas for blogs that I had collected over the years, somehow all these ideas from my past, like I would love to talk about. And then that was a done deal. And then I did technical marketing. I mean, technical marketing means you like really have your hands on the software still, as you may know, and you do like to set up simulation or gather them. And that's a really it's a fun place to be, because you can do a lot of cool simulations. And you're getting paid for it. So
yeah, that's one benefit of it. I was let's delve a little bit deeper into the marketing aspect, right? You said you switched into marketing. Maybe you can explain why that happened, why you think marketing was like a cool thing for you, because I had the similar journey, as you know.
Yeah.
But then also on the other hand, why is it so difficult to find technical marketers nowadays?
Yeah. Good point. So I think what you need as an engineer is like the ambition to really sell the stuff you're doing, or you enjoy this. Obviously, many people, many engineers, they are really passionate about the thing they do, and they are good at talking to their peers about it. And you share the same mindset, and you can really like be very excited about the details of something. I realized that it's actually very cool to be able to bring this to a broader audience, right? And to like really, I love CFD, and to explain to my friends, my parents, my wife, what I do. The easiest way to do it is show me a picture, show me an animation, and then say, did you think that, I don't know, this side mirror of the car has undergone, I don't know how many development cycles until it does what it does, and there's raindrops coming, and if especially with fluid mechanics, there are so many products out there that nobody is in public life is aware that all this engineering has gone into it. And I realized that it's actually my passion to talk about that that great value that many engineers around the globe bring to normal people, how they change their lives, and that I enjoyed. And when you then start working with customers that use the software like at a really high level, and you see all the applications, the car is the most obvious. Like automotive industry has been doing simulations for 40, 50 years, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then it became more and more exciting to see all the other industries and applications and all this stuff out there. Like, would you think that somebody is using CFD to like optimize the patterns of strawberry sauce in an ice cream? No, you wouldn't, but that's the thing people do these days. Or you take your coffee machine, or you even take toothpaste or whatever it is. Like, there are so many things that I realized it's just exciting to explore that, and then also to talk about it and bring the awareness to the people, and cast the engineer as the hero of great stories out there. That really is the thing that still keeps me going in marketing, and that hasn't changed. I just got more and more broad from automotive, which was for me the right thing. As I said, I was not a petrol head in the first place, and that's where I then started to go down the rabbit hole and professionalize this. Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. I want to talk about one of the blogs that you thought were kind of more like a fun activity, which is the beer blog, the beer simulation that you've done.
Yeah.
But then actually people afterwards, maybe you can talk about the story a little bit, reached out to you because of the foam that has been generated.
Yeah. So, when you do marketing, what you realize is you invest in stories heavily, and then they don't fly. So like, you spend half a year writing a great blog, and you're like, this is a masterpiece, and nobody cares it. That's a usual thing you need to get used to. On the contrary, sometimes you do this one-off thing, you don't think much about it, you invest a bit, and suddenly you realize, oh, that was really impactful, and people come to you, and it's actually creating business. And the Stout blog was one of them. I mean, it was not that I did not invest a lot, but I wouldn't have expected it to fly that well. It was like, in marketing, you have these events like St. Patrick's Day, the trigger. Let's do something about St. Patrick's Day. So I was like, I like Guinness during the winter time. So I was like, why not simulate, there is this famous myth about the bubbles in a Guinness, that they actually like have these this donut shape when they go actually like counterintuitive when you fill the Guinness. And I just thought, let's see if we can simulate that effect. Then obviously I'm a big fan of good visualizations, like make the thing democratized and people understand it. So I did this really polished simulation of a Guinness, where you can then look into the glass and the fluid dynamics and what the bubbles do. And there was some aspect of foaming in that simulation. And the thing I would not have expected is many engineers have like a challenge to cope with foaming in various applications, like gearbox splashing or sloshing. Yeah, there is oil in there, and it's an issue if the oil becomes whipped up like whipped cream, and you have that foam. So there were people that realized, okay, this blog is not about Guinness only or Stout. It is actually about a very fundamental physical phenomenon that is present in many applications. So it became a very impactful blog in the sense of creating business. And sometimes people come to you and say, show me the KPIs, why are you doing this? And you say, I did it because it's fun in the first place. And then turns out in the marketing world, you see these things, and in the simulation world, where same physics, same problems, and people are smart enough to figure it out. So they reached out, quite a bunch of people reached out trying to get hold of the model and everything. So yeah.
That's pretty interesting. You mentioned one interesting thing, Simon, which is the role of the post-processing engineer, which is also a new role that's developing more and more, right?
Yeah.
So why is post-processing becoming more and more, I would say, an important piece of engineering communication?
Yeah, this is the closest to my heart, because I've been fighting that battle for ages. And if you know engineers, and the nice thing about me being in marketing is I was doing CFD for 10 plus years, 15. And I've been there myself. I've been an engineer, so I know exactly how you guys tick. So I think And there is this old cliche of, especially with CFD, like color for directors or all these other jokes, you name it. And it has been there for a reason at the beginning, I would say, right? Nobody took us as CFD engineers maybe that seriously at the beginning, and test is always ground truth. All these things, and people have maybe not at the beginning taken it serious enough to connect pretty looking pictures with hardcore engineering facts. And it's a tough one to do that. And so there was this cliche coming up that this is all just beautiful pictures. And I believe, yes, it may be a beautiful picture, but you, as an engineer these days, what you need to learn is understand your target audience, even as an engineer, just like a marketeer. So you do a project, you have to present. Who do you present to? Do you present to your peers? Or do you present to the C-level? And okay, we are back at color for directors at that point, but you need to pick people up. And that's fundamentally important. You cannot just show a graph and a line chart and then they go off and they don't understand what you talk about. And they are like, no, he won't get the budget, right? You need to understand, you need to convince people, yes, with facts, but to come to the facts, you first need to introduce the problem to them in a way that they don't have to make all the translation in their mind, but they get it. So you need to show the thing first. Show the car, show the side mirror, show whatever it is, the assembly, and then you go in and you zoom in to the level of engineering hardcore facts that you actually want to show. And you need to make an important thought process to think about what is the one thing I want to convey when I show my engineering results. And then you craft in your mind, you craft a sort of script. And I think that is a skill. If you master that skill, you will be able to do the same great engineering that you've done before, but you will be more successful in a business sense because you can sell your results to get what you need at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, every engineer wants to make something better. But you can only make something better if people are willing to pay for it. Sometimes it's more expensive to make something better. And you need to convince people that have the money that this is the right thing to do. And I think that visual storytelling is one way of doing that. And that's why technical marketing engineers or any engineer should level up their skills and think thoroughly about how they present their results. And to me, visual was, like I said at the beginning, I want to see things and visual insights from any 3D simulation is you have all the data at all points in time. And that you need to make the most out of it.
I think that's super interesting, Simon, because the thing is ultimately you're translating zeros and ones into a story.
Yeah.
Do you feel like in university or in school, we should be taught as engineers more the topic of marketing and sales, actually communicating to our audience? Because I think that's lacking in engineering communication or true studies.
Yeah, I saw this. I think it was not a real. Was more like a meme sort of bar chart that made its way through LinkedIn a few times, where they show skills engineers believe they should have versus skills they really need. And it was 80% they believe, 90% is all about the engineering details versus all the soft skills, you name them. I really believe that it's a tool at the end of the day, and engineers use tools, right? So if you understand the tool a bit more, it will help you. I'm not proposing that you should oversell or you should fool people using marketing vehicles. I don't do that in marketing myself, but you should just be aware that if you are able to present your results better, then people will pay more attention to it, because people are like a good story, and people and with story I don't mean an arbitrary thing. Story is defined in a very specific way for me, but generate an insight that people have not had before, and it will make them curious to understand more and to engage with you. And I think that skill, yes, if you have that, it will help you throughout your career, regardless what you do. And especially in engineering, I see that we can step up our game there. And for me, the first step was to I want to tell these stories of great engineering, find nice, interesting applications, find enthusiastic people and cast them and show the world what they do. And the next step for me was always like, that's sort of my next mission, if you want, to enable engineers to do it themselves. And event like that, you can see like how important it is. If you come to a conference and you present your results, you should do it in the best possible manner, because it will help you in so many ways moving forward, and also on the engineering side, in my mind. So yeah, clearly, the sooner you start embracing a bit of that, the better. Yeah. And this is not about using PowerPoint.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's about the fundamentals underneath.
Yeah. Maybe the audience is also interested, or very much likely interested in, do you have some maybe tips and tricks, but also some misconceptions about post-processing that you've encountered over the last years?
The first thing, and that's really an easy one, and keep it in your mind the next time you do a whatever image or graph. Your image has or your screen has a certain size, and that size is made to transfer information to your audience. The thing I've seen a lot is many people waste a lot of space not having any relevant information on the screen. So that's the first thing I always, if one of my colleagues creates an image and I look at the ratio of this is filled with information, this is just plain white, I say, can you please change the angle and think about the view, the zoom, whatever it is, right? Next thing is, what is it that you really want to carve out? What is, like, where's the major gradient? What is the thing? And that's an interesting part. If I create visuals, I have very long conversations with the engineer that created the simulation in the first place to understand what it's all about. Like, if we release a new feature in the software, I want to make sure that without me explaining a lot, a visual speaks or explains the new feature or what it is about in without many words, right? It's not always possible, but so you need to really have this conversation to understand what is it that we would zoom in, what is it that we would show the before and after, these kind of things, and really make a dedicated effort on that one. Next one is color. And you know Stefan Groß, he will give you you're gonna have a podcast with Stefan next time talking about colors, I guess, for half an hour easily, because we are back at color for directors, but color matters, and color is not like the red, green, blue is just an arbitrary ancient choice because somebody that developed the code thought, okay, this is the colors that we have available, so let's use them all. And that's nonsense, to be honest. Like, the default color bar of every CFD simulation is just not a good choice. For reasons of perception, for reasons of how do people recognize colors and gradients and stuff. So there's a whole science around that. So think about that as well. And then maybe for my CFD colleagues, streamlines are not spaghettis. That's my last one. So
a good one.
You can see a lot of unfiltered abuse of streamlines in my mind, because people you really need to work hard on streamlines to make them meaningful. Like, consider the length, consider the density. Like, if you have a recirculation bubble and there is this bunch of spaghettis hanging around there, it's not good practice. And that's another one, where very tangible one, where I would say, think about that. And finally, maybe coming back to relatability, if you can show the engineering content, like a contour plot on a section plane, at least at the beginning, in context of the overarching thing you're simulating, like you give an overview and you make it immediately clear where you are right now, like either through an animation or even in a still image where it becomes more difficult, but give context, give background, give geometry that is adjacent to it without falling into the trap of doing just beautiful things, but really also, but give the engineering results the immediate context. That would be another one I would say is, at least at the beginning, when people got it, then you can of course just show your engineering line charts or whatever it is. But that one also, I would say, is a good practice. Yeah.
If people want to delve into technical marketing, what advice would you give them from a upskilling perspective, but also not really transitioning, but they're still engineers, but they want to delve into marketing and maybe into communications? What would you advise them to do? talk a little bit about your mistakes that you've done in the past. Is marketing that easy? Because I don't think it is.
No, it's clearly not. It's like I said, it's always about the audience at the end of the day. Who do you have in front of you, and you don't always know. That's what's one thing. That's a challenge. Sometimes you just have to make the stretch. If you're on mass media, you want to reach both the experts and the non-experts. You want to reach the customer and the C-level person. So there is always this challenge. In terms of mistakes, biggest mistake is you have this very cool idea just because you like it, and you fall into the trap of thinking, I can quickly do that. And as we all know, if we do simulations, nothing is quick. I mean, yes, we're getting quicker and quicker. Tools are getting easier and easier, but you really need to learn something about your problem, especially if you do something you haven't done before. And that's the nice thing about marketing. Sometimes you have these possibilities to do these things, but you fall into the trap that my rule of thumb in the meantime is I have a first estimate of how long this will take me, and then I put on a factor of 5 to 10. And that maybe is the real thing. So I have a bunch of projects that I was never able to finish. And also you don't have, sometimes you just need to do what the market wants and not what you want.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good one.
That's the other one. So you can't always just play, most of the times I don't play around. I really make a dedicated effort to look at things that matter. But yeah, it's, and that being said, sometimes or oftentimes you rely on real engineers on the real stuff, and then you just work closely with them and polish up some simulations as a technical marketing engineer, rather than doing it all yourself. So that's really like, it can be really cool to take a project from start to finish, but you don't always have the freedom, and you end up halfway through and then you're frustrated and you couldn't get it done in years, and that has happened a few times. So when I retire, then I will revisit a few things.
I think that sounds like a good plan. That's a very good point that you mentioned, Simon, which is the collaborative aspect, right? That you have to work with the engineers, with the sales department, maybe customer success. So it's a very collaborative job role, I would say. And if you don't do that and you work in silos, I think this is it's going to backfire at some point.
Yeah, and that's also what I enjoy a lot is you get this broad network and these insights from various angles on the thing you love the most, and I enjoy that. And so that's clearly a big advantage of being at this crossroad. Like when I talk to product managers or developers, my mission there is translate the thing that they are very good at into something that is that you get the benefit immediately. Like there's a new feature, the product manager is super excited about it, and you have this conversation and you really carve out, and good product managers know from the very beginning what the customer value is. Otherwise they wouldn't have started engaging in that project, and then we as a company wouldn't have invested. But having this conversation and understanding what the value is and then conveying it to the market is a critically important part of the role. So not talk about features and capabilities, but lead, or not in the first place, but lead with the benefit. Why did we actually do what we did to the software, and why does it matter to the end user? That's a cool translation process.
I want to talk a little bit about the hiring part, because I think a lot of people who watch this are interested in maybe becoming technical marketers. Obviously, I'm a huge fan when I hire not to look too much on the degree. Of course, if you're an engineer, you need a degree, like as a doctor or a lawyer.
Yep.
What do you look for in terms of qualities when you're hiring a technical marketer?
Send me an image and I don't need a CV, I would say. No, serious. I mean, images is not everything, but I think technical marketing is really about being able to deal with the software, and especially deal with the software when it comes to conveying messages. So like we really, when we hire people, I try to find out if they are savvy in the software. Okay, that's one point. But then they also need this hard to measure skill or gene. I call it the eye. I don't know how to better phrase it, but they have this talent, like almost like an artist, where they are able to create these visuals that do all the things I explained earlier. And if you start doing that, you have a bit of talent, but then you you need a few tips and tricks, and then you can really refine your skills. So first it's a more out of a guts feeling kind of thing, but you can really professionalize and look behind the scenes. So what we do when we hire people, for example, is we give them a first shot. Send us one of the images you're very proud of, or do use our tutorial, and to make it fair for everyone. Everybody does the tutorial and sends us an image. We say post-process pressure on this vessel or whatever it is. They do it with some free surfaces and whatnot, and they do it, and then they get one chance to redo it after we said we don't like this. So we get a feeling for, do they anticipate what we just explained, what we think is more valuable? And these two shots already give you a good hint of if somebody is able to do the visual thing. And then there is the whole like writing, messaging kind of thing, and you really need to ask yourself, is this something I'm comfortable with, I want to be doing, like writing up stuff, writing messages, writing small LinkedIn posts, whatever it is. You need a bit of this extrovert sort of, I want to go out with the things I've done, this kind of attitude. That's what I try to carve out in such interviews, to figure out if people are up for that. And I want them to be very honest to themselves in that moment. And some just say, okay, actually I want to take it, stay in technologies. Yeah. Some like embrace that, and yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. There is one book, I think it's called really data visualization, where they talk about colors.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact name, but I'll put the link of that book in the description.
Yeah.
Talking about books, your top 3 CFD books for the audience.
Here is a confession. I've never read any CFD book from start to finish in my career.
Yeah, me neither though. I use it more like a lexicon.
Yeah. And then obviously I've Parrige's book. I have used that quite a bit, but in a different fashion. I've basically CFD is a tool at the end of the day, right? And you should use a tool with your hands on, in my mind. Obviously, CFD is not a hammer. It's a bit more complex. But if you read books about how to use a hammer for years without ever touching a hammer, you probably won't fly. And you need to just take the thing and hit on your thumb once or twice. And then, that's my advice, then you need to start reading. So I always was very successful. Maybe there are other ways, and it depends on which type of learner you are. But I was always the guy that first simulates and then looks at the results and then realizes, why is that? Why might that be? And be very, that's the big ask. Also coming back to color for directors, you need to be skeptical. It's very important. And then you need to start understanding. And you look at the results. I understood what numerical diffusion was by predicting the uniformity of a scalar on a plane, and I realized it's way off of measurement. And I realized that way, okay, something is wrong here, doesn't match the experiment. Let's figure that out. Go through the model setup. Why would that be? All the things you check, boundary conditions, and then you go to things like, I learned what numerical diffusion is by that process, because I then understood, okay, there is a differencing scheme, and if it's not stiff enough, then you will get this spread out of the scalar. And then you start reading and you understand the numerics behind it. I've not coded a Navier-Stokes equation or something like that, but I learned it that way on the application, and that for me worked. But always question your results and then try to understand. And also, when you set up the first model, you read a bit about the models you might want to choose, obviously. But the more you run, the more you get a feeling for it. Because I think really the hammer is maybe not the best example, but if you do sports or play an instrument, like there is this moment where, yes, you educate yourself on theory, but there is this moment where you become one with the tool, you know? It's like your extended arm if you play tennis or hockey or whatever it is. And I think with CFD tools or any CAE tool, it's a bit similar. The more you use it, the more you get a feeling for the tool and how it would react and which parameters to touch and which not to is a learning process. And you need to run, look at results, understand that. That's the way I was lucky on university. You have endless licenses. You don't worry too much about these kind of things, and also in the company. But I think it's an important step of making your experiences using the tool and combining it with a bit of reading. So I don't have many CFD books to specifically recommend. It really depends on the topic. I was looking a lot at Lefebvre, which is mostly about sprays and breakup and all these Lagrangian stuff. When I did the PhD, that was like my Bible at that time. So yeah, and Perich is like, for me, was the thing that I pulled out. But yeah, these are the ones.
Number one, I would say Perich's book as well, and then obviously Perich's course, which has also been sponsored by Siemens on Coursera. That's a good one as well. And I think also what you said, to sum it up maybe, is like people often try to find a shortcut, but I think not taking the shortcut is actually the shortcut. So actually you have to make the mistake.
Yeah, exactly. There is almost no shortcut. Yes, you can listen to your colleagues and get good advice. That's also one, instead of reading. And that helps. Talk to people, show them your results. Don't be shy if they are off. Like, talk to people that are experienced or as experienced as you are and discuss the things. Be critical about them. Not always when you're forced to do a validation. Also be skeptical towards the experimentalists out there. That's another observation I made throughout my career. You spend ages debugging your model, trying to find the flaw in your setup, and it turns out the boundary condition was actually 30 centimeters further, 3 centimeters further upstream. But if you measure a pressure trace, transient pressure trace at a given position, if you're the experimentalist, you don't really care where exactly it is. You just have the pressure, and that's the ground truth. But if you have to put it on your simulation, and then there is a gas path and there is oscillations, yes, it matters if it's here and there. So, or seen geometries being swapped without you knowing. Like, okay, we have a PLM system these days. But anyways, this is still a classic. And so be also skeptical and talk to the experimentalists when you see a mismatch and make them understand what simulation implies, is another hint I would have in that regard. So yeah.
That's also very good advice, yeah. I give you 3 questions. You have to ideally answer them in 1 or 2 sentences, maybe 1 word.
I'm not good at that, as you may have read.
That's fine. So, favorite equation, most favorite equation?
Heisenberg-Unschärfe-Relation.
Okay.
So this is like not an equation, to be fair.
Yeah, I know.
But it's the nature. So I couldn't talk more than, it's Heisenberg, and it's because it is philosophically the most interesting one.
Yeah, I like that one. That's good. Favorite product of the Simcenter suite?
I don't know if I should say that, but it is Simcenter CCC+.
Yeah, obvious
to say that. This is like, I've grown up with, I've done StarCD before, but I've just grown up with it. So yeah, it will always be in my heart.
Sounds good. Most favorite scientist of all time?
Probably Richard Feynman.
That's a good one. Like that answer. If you could have dinner with someone except Feynman, who would you have dinner with? Doesn't matter if they're still alive or not. And what would you talk about?
Okay, one maybe is that this just comes to mind first, right? David Beckham.
Okay, also an interesting one. I thought more like a fluid scientist or fluid analysis.
No, you know why? To me, David Beckham is interesting because he created this brand out of himself, and he was very passionate about soccer in the first place. And then at one point he became what he became, like an icon. But he was one of the first influences on this planet in a way to me. But because he was always like, from what I can tell, I would love to ask him. Hence, he was always focused on soccer when it was about soccer, and for me it's a bit the same. I still passionate for engineering, and then I do the marketing stuff on top of it. So
that is interesting answer. Yeah. What are you excited about actually about the future of simulation? Don't give me don't say GPU acceleration, like something more.
And then I could say, and I'm not saying AI. Now we've managed to do the whole podcast so far not mentioning the word AI, which now it's done. What I'm most excited about simulation is seeing disciplines truly come together. I think it just started, if we are honest, to have a true multi-physics, multi-domain digital twin that really does the thing. And in terms of equations, seeing maybe a Stokes equation meet Maxwell equation in like a really coupled way, and these or not coupled, but combined way.
Yeah.
These kind of, I think that's exciting when it comes to simulation, to see how it becomes easier to do these kind of really. I'm a big fan of fluid structure interaction simulation, for example. So the first quick win, but seeing fluids interact with mechanics is always fascinating.
Absolutely.
Going further down that route, that's to me is in the simulation. Yeah.
Excellent, Simon. Thank you so much for the interview. I appreciate it.
Same. So it was a pleasure.
Likewise. So that's a wrap. This was another episode of the Realize Life podcast here in Amsterdam. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want more information, I share all relevant links with you in the description. Make sure to follow, hit the like button, and also make sure to follow Simcenter for more information about the world of simulation, AI, and engineering.